Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome. Thank you for coming today. Today is Friday, December 19th, 2025, and we are here for the Legislative Committee of the Colorado Forest Health Council. I am Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shaddy McNally, chair of this committee, and thank you all for being here today. This is probably our last meeting of the year, and we have several going for next year, but I want to just thank everyone. I know we're all really busy, and this is great to have you all here. So let's go ahead and do roll call. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'll run down the list here. Samantha Albert.
Morning all, and apologies, I'm on the road today, so I'll be off camera. Thanks so much.
Nice to see you, Samantha. Pat Dorsey. Looks like Pat is not quite here yet. Christina Bury.
Morning.
Morning, Christina. Commissioner Jody Shaddock McNally.
Morning, present.
Good morning, Commissioner. Mark Morgan.
Here.
Morning, Mark. Julie Stencil.
Good morning. I'm here. Due to power outages, I'm trying to preserve all batteries, so I'm going to keep my video off and all the things, but I am here.
Okay, great. Commissioner Veronica Medina.
Good morning, present.
Good morning, Commissioner. And Allison Lurch. Allison's not quite here yet, and I do see Pat joined. Good morning, Pat. Great, and I also saw that Nina Waters was joining, and oh, but she's not here now. We can, yeah, I haven't heard if she wants to join the committee officially. I think Nina might try to hop back on, so that can be a discussion of how that happens. If she wants to be an official member or an observer.
Yeah, let's just, I'm not sure she hasn't, I'm not sure she has understood maybe how that works, but we can ask her here in a minute. Let's go ahead and move on. I think it's the approval of the minutes. Thank you, Courtney, for all that you're doing to get those done. And I see Pat Dorsey's here as well.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Well, also, I'm not sure if people had a chance, but I found a few other meeting minutes in the past that had been not approved. So I'm hoping that we can approve. It's in the agenda. It's January 10th, July 25th, and December 12th.
I've read through all of those and I would move to approve them all.
Great.
Second.
Thank you all for that. Thanks for that catch. Yeah, I saw that and I went, oh, thank you for catching all of those. I appreciate that. So it's been any other further discussion? All right, so all those in favor? Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, let's move on. I moved up the breakfast to the top of the agenda because we always run out of time and I wanted to give it a little more attention today. So Courtney, I don't know if you have some updates. I have one. I have the stickers. So how they look? Good size?
Really good, Commissioner. That's awesome.
And you can really see, and I made sure that the artist's name could be seen and illustrated by at the bottom. So yeah, so there we go. And then here's, if you want to look for size, whoops. Size, yeah, about the palm of your hand. I'm really pleased with them and local company in Longmont and great stuff. So win, win, win. Also, I just want to take note, we're all dealing, I've got power, I'm out in the country. My internet is, bouncing off the top of a mountain. I don't have, even though I've been working on broadband, spreading it throughout my county, I still don't have any. So just want everyone to have grace and patience. Excuse me, if we have anyone who ends up coming off and on. So just help me notice if someone's missing and let's all give each other kind of some time. I know we have a lot of power outages off and on. All right, so Courtney, what other updates do you have?
Yes, I'm happy to share that things are moving along nicely. maybe something like 43 different stories were submitted from council members to align with the different themes within the 30-year vision. And so folks from the State Forest Service and DNR are kind of splitting those up and going to select a story from each of the themes to go on the website, so that when people are at the breakfast and they're learning about the 30-year vision, but maybe and they don't have time to go really deep, they can either scan this QR code and it takes them to the website, or they can visit the website later and read about how work being done already in Colorado is aligning with the themes that are in the 30-year vision. So that's moving along. I've filled out the application to have Smokey Bear join us. I haven't heard back, but I heard that the costume was available. We've received quotes and think we found a nice company to cater the breakfast. They would bring coffee, they would bring burritos for everyone. So Mark and Julie, I think I'll be in stencil with you. Wait, Mark and Julie, I think I will be in contact with each of you to talk a little bit more about that, since you had volunteered at one point to sponsor the food and coffee.
I'm good to go with that. Just who do I send the check to?
Okay, perfect. Yes, I'll call you about that. We'll place the order and then we'll have someone else. We'll have y'all pay. Another thing we need to be doing, and it's sort of order of operations, I'll put together a little sponsor page that'll say like, who can we thank for the items that are there and what is the value. That's just something we have to do that the Capitol says. And then the State Forest Service is putting together for us a 2-sided one-pager. So we're hoping on this piece of paper, it talks a little bit about the Forest Health Council, and then it discusses some of the things that the council's accomplished, like the development of the 30-year vision, like the development of the Forest Resilience Planning Guide. We're going to put the Forest Tracker on there too, because Brett has really brought that into the Committee on Leveraging Resources, and they have helped kind of guide that in some ways and support it. So those are some of the updates on what's being created. Jody said there's the stickers are ready. Pat, I'm curious if you're still pursuing cookies, if that's something.
I am still
Correct.
pursuing it. I need to get it nailed down though. I'll try to do that over the Christmas holiday.
Okay, great.
And Courtney, I'll email everyone so everyone knows it's been taken care of.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
And I'm sponsoring the stickers, so I can send you that amount. I got a really screaming deal. Lots of coupons off, so.
Great. Kind of the next step is I'm planning on sending out an RSVP email asking people from the council who's planning to attend, and then to see if some people are available. We think that, so the space is available to us starting at 7. I imagine it'll take us 15 or 20 minutes to set up. So I imagine the event itself will start at 7:15 or 7:20. And we'll see if people can show up at 7 to help us with setup. But because the food is being delivered, I'm hoping there's not too much of a runaround that morning. So I'll send out an email to see who's available to join, and then also who's available to join for setup.
Put me in every slot. I'm going to help and come and say setup and also take down. Also, I was wondering, since it's our first one, if there is a way to have a quick survey for when the legislators leave. Maybe a quick thumbs up, thumbs down if they thought it was helpful or not, or how helpful, and just wondering, just so we have some feedback. And I don't know what that looked like, if it's a QR code or something, just so they can quickly, we can gather it right there as they're leaving, just to see what they liked about it, or if they found it helpful, and if they had any questions, something like that. So I know what you all think about that.
I'd be very curious, to hear ideas about how to best gather feedback. I think we'll be giving them a piece of paper that has the council information on it. So we'll at least be handing them one thing.
Well, I wonder if there's on that piece of paper with the QR code, it would just be a quick, like, Google you know, your name. Did you find this helpful? Do you have any further questions? Thank you for coming. Like 2 questions, 30 seconds, because they'll probably be rushing. So what do you think, Allison?
I was wondering if temporarily, Courtney, we might be able to put something just on the Forest Health Council website. You know, since the QR code is going to go right to the Forest Health Council website, and for a brief period of time, I mean, we could capture also who is going, and it could just be a little quick. Did you attend the breakfast? You know, please let us know.
That's a great idea. That can help save some time with having to follow up and compare around the list at reduced capacity. I think that's a great idea. Allison?
Well, and just wanted to continue that for a second, Commissioner, because then we can also all encourage, as we are using this one pager, it's hard, is it a one pager, is it a 2-pager? But as we use this as our guiding conversation piece for the people we talk to, we can also mention that, you know, it's on the website as well. So it can just be all part of the conversation, even if it doesn't jump out on the one pager itself.
It's a great idea. And it sounds like that would be less time intensive too. So, Mr. Morgan.
Yes. In the past, you've spoken about what is the opportunity for different groups, agencies, or whatever to bring literature to this, what's appropriate, and like, I'm trying to understand what you want to present here. Would timber groups be appropriate to have literature available there? What kind of, I guess, editorial restrictions do you have? What would you like to do there? Is that inappropriate? I guess I'm curious.
I'll let Allison and Courtney maybe answer that. I think we were focusing on helping educate about what the Forest Health Council's done and what they have funded and what has been appropriate. I mean, what has done well, and let them see how their votes and their work have been successful. And I certainly think,
For example,
yeah, go ahead, Mr. Morgan.
For example, what their group does a lot of is GNA, and GNA is, we would be able to show what GNA has accomplished on the ground, what could be. I think I get it, it's educational, I get it, what you're trying to do here. I don't want to overstep, but I don't want to fail to meet an educational opportunity here either. Because what we do legislatively allows these things to happen. That's what's targeted, that's what's trying to be done. I guess you want materials that show. I've been listening about, we've got stories. I don't know, you could try to incorporate it into a story, but I think there's education. It's one thing to legislate or fund a program. The real key is, what does that program do on the ground when it works? I guess that's what I'm trying to show.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to do with those stories, and show the stories and how it worked, and hey, this such and such bill did this. I'm assuming that's what you're all doing, showing the stories of how it fits the vision, and look how this was successful. And you know, like the one in Breckenridge, I think they really credit the work that had been done, saved the whole neighborhood, like hundreds of homes. So I think that's something that is kind of why we're doing this, is to help educate, you know, what they have done and how successful it's been. And then hopefully also, I'm hoping a cost of doing nothing, and kind of how 1 to 6 or 1 to 13, you know, because the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said it's 1 to 13 for mitigation work. But hold that thought, Mr. Morgan. Let's see what Pat and then Courtney have to say.
Yeah, and Courtney, I actually think you were ahead of me.
I think mine says 2, but go ahead, Courtney, if you want.
Yeah, they actually count for us. So yours has a 1 and mine has a 2. So go ahead, Pat.
Okay. Two things. One is I think I owe you a story, Courtney, on some wildlife benefits or wildlife related stories. So we could have that for the thing. And then I had a question about the governor's announcement on mountain pine beetle the other day. I'm assuming
That's our
there'll be.
next item. That's
Oh,
our next
okay.
item. We're going to talk about it. So Alice and I were there. So jumping ahead, let's finish this first, but then we'll certainly be covering that in the next agenda item.
Yeah, I just wondered if we should be prepared to answer some questions about that at the reception or at the breakfast.
Yeah, I think we will be. Yeah. So I think that's the next item. So Courtney, what was your question?
Yeah, these are good questions. We have had someone else reach out about bringing other materials to the event, asking, is it appropriate for other nonprofits to come and bring materials or to speak about forest health? And our response to them, because my response to them was that we were really focusing on the work of the council, not forest health in general. So we're not going to be talking about what. Yeah, I think there's an incredible opportunity to do a forest health educational breakfast, and I think that this event is a Forest Health Council breakfast and education on the Forest Health Council. And Mark, 100%, I hear what you're saying. We should be highlighting what it looks like to be successful in GNA. I would love to get a story from you, and we could highlight that during the event. And I think the stories can also exist, we could print them out. So if somebody's really interested in wildlife or somebody's really interested in funding, we can say, and we have this story, like the success story, and we could kind of walk them through it. And then we can say, well, you can find it on our website. So I sent you an email, but maybe I'll give you a call, Mark, to see if any of these materials that you're talking about exist in digital format, because we would love to include them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or thoughts on this? I think we'll talk about this again in the first meeting, because we'll really have to fine tune it and be ready to go. So we're not stressing everybody out the day or two before going, what? We have to think about that or do that. So think about some little things that maybe we're not getting ahead of already. So Commissioner Medina, did you raise your hand? Okay, thanks. All right, so let's move on to the next item, which Pat, thank you for queuing that up and making it segue. I love that. So Allison, you and I both attended the governor's press conference at the Elk Meadow open space in Jefferson County, which there was Commissioner Nita Waters was also there from the Forest Health Council. I think she is connected to Dan. She came in, and commissioners from Jefferson County, Commissioner Leslie Dahl-Kemper is on the Carlisle Fire Commission, and Commissioner Kerr. There's the governor, there's federal, state, Course Director McCombs, and folks from the U.S. Forest Service. There was just some amazing showing, as Director Morgan from the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control said, and of course, Director Gibbs always says there's no daylight between us. And so that was really the theme, that this is together and we've got to work together and bring this. And I think we've heard them say that before. So very, very powerful day. And we got to actually see some of the bark, and where we were at is almost clear cut in that small area. The trees behind us, so you see in those pictures, are infested and marked, and they will probably be cut down and chipped. And as you know, we talked about how to have a special head, and I was taking note of the mulch pile looks really different than other mulch piles. So I'm assuming that's best practice. So there's a lot of things I was taking note of, but certainly in that swath of area, all the trees have been cut down, which is devastating to hear. But I know Jefferson County is really feeling this right now and trying to prepare. So I think there's more to come. And I think I'm glad we held a placeholder for some pine beetle ideas or legislation, because I do think there'll be actions. The governor's place, as I understand, Allison, the governor's looking to do action and legislation this year and probably ongoing. And so I'm glad we have that placeholder. So I'm going to let Allison fill in, because Allison was there. It was so great to see you in person. And it was a large group, and we had 4 TV stations and a bunch of other things there. So quite the big deal. So if you want to talk about the executive order and the stakeholder group and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Thanks, Commissioner. And you all should have received a last-minute invitation to the event as well. So sorry that these things, when they are announced, it's generally very close to the day of the event. And so in addition to what Commissioner said, the governor was there to sign an executive order to create the Ponderosa Mountain Pine Beetle Task Force that will be up and running for 3 years or more or less, but at least under the executive order, it's a 3-year task force with a big charge to focus on short, medium, and long-term actions associated with the mountain pine beetle outbreak, our communities, our watersheds, focusing on the cohesive wildfire strategy really as at the core, which is, I think we all know, is creating fire adapted communities, having resilient landscapes, and then safe and effective wildfire response. This task force idea came out of a previous task force that was developed in the early 2000s or mid 2000s at the previous mountain pine beetle outbreak in Lodgepole Pine along I-70. However, that one was not was not directed through an executive order, and this one is. So in the coming months, Director Gibbs with DNR, State Forester Matt McCombs, and Director Mike Morgan will and their teams will be meeting to develop the appointee list for the executive order. I'm going to drop it in after I talk so you all can have a chance to look at it if you haven't. We have to have appointees by March 1st and facilitation by that time as well. Actually, I think appointees are February 1st. And then a generalized work plan of how this task force will flow by March 1st. So it's there's a lot ahead of us in planning, but there's a lot of coordination with this council that is going to happen as well. So I know last time we talked, I gave you sort of a stay tuned type of approach, but I'm going to continue with that at this moment and at our meetings coming in January as we have internal discussions about the task force and how things are developing and people sort of settle from their time off during the holiday season. We'll have a lot more about work plan and how the collaboration will happen between the Forest Health Council and this task force as well. It's just an exciting opportunity as well to highlight our state's forest health. I think it's hard to, once we have the media, once we have the governor and everyone on board, it's to me, seems like we all have to run and get this done. But we all know in this room that this is not a short-term problem or issue for our forests and for our communities. We have to be in a marathon together. And that's going to take continued trust. I mean, I think this council has amazing trust, but amongst all the partners within the state, within our federal partners, within our nonprofit and philanthropist stakeholders, and everyone to come together and really sit in this for the long term. So that's gonna, we do have a brief sprint right now, but what we've all learned and what we all know about this is not something that we just close up overnight. The other thing I just want to mention is, as part of the executive order and as part of the event, a map that was developed by the U.S. Forest Service was published and shared, which was a projection map. And I've been working with the U.S. Forest Service on that because there's a lot of alarm that comes when you look at the map, because we are obviously speaking right now and focusing on the Front Range, but this is not just a Front Range problem. That's why, and so when you look at the projection map of the potential, now this is not the exact, right? This is the potential of the spread. It moves west, places like where Pat Dorsey lives in the Southwest, in La Plata County, Commissioner Medina, all of where we live, where there is mountain pine beetle, you can see that progression and the potential. So more to come. And thank you all for the continued work that we do here in this council. I can't share any more specifics. My dog always barks. I can't share any more specifics about legislative actions that are happening within the bark beetle package, but there are a couple. The governor's office is working on a few items right now. And hopefully I can share at our next meeting in January.
Thanks, Allison. Before we ask anybody have any questions, well, if you don't mind, I'll ask my first two. We put some placeholders in our tentative list. Is that appropriate? Should we just be ready to approve, or what's the word I'm like, support, showing that we are in support of certain legislation, or should we hold something for us? And then my second question, you talked about the map and how that's being developed, and it was shared publicly. How and what kind of toolkit do we have as forest health people, or if we want to talk about this and people have seen the map or shown the map, how what can we share, what should we share, and how do we talk with others? I had when I had posted about I just showed some of the pictures and talked about I was going to share more to come. A lot of the comments under my post were, oh, you're 15 years too late, you're 10 years too late, this is stupid, what a waste. And I was like, okay, I need to go back and re-educate. This is a new outbreak and this is different. And so I'm just wondering, and then Mr. Morgan's hands up after that, but if you wouldn't mind answering those two questions, thanks.
Yeah, I don't want to put Christina on the spot, but the Colorado State Forest Service has been working really hard to update their websites, their information, and really bring this outbreak to the present, right, of what we can and can't do. So Christina, can I turn it to you?
Yeah, thank you. That's why I raised my hand. So just trying to be polite. So yes, I think we have a few things for resources currently. So I'll try to share in the chat the website that people can go to currently, but then more resources are going to be developed as well. Certainly our forest health report that's usually out in the spring, like March, April timeframe, I think will be a great resource for folks. So that's on the way. And I think in lines with the executive order, there's going to be a lot more focus on the public outreach components. So I think what would be helpful for not necessarily this group, but just you as individuals and the organizations you represent is what kinds of things would be helpful for you. What do you need to know? What are the missing pieces of information that that we can try to help with and assist with? What kinds of questions you're anticipating from your constituents? I think those are things that will just be really helpful for us to consider as we're trying to think about the right method and the right message for getting this information out. To your questions, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, about are we too late? We're very much a part of CSU, and we have a lot of wonderful research partners, especially with the U.S. Forest Service Rocky Mountain Research Station. That's a question that we get a lot is, hey, I think you guys might be 20 years too late. And I think our response to that particular critique is that it's still ongoing. You're right in that it's new. But when people are saying you're 20 years too late, they just mean the buildup of the fuels. That's it's not that we're too late in responding to the beetle as it's currently projected. It's just we've created a condition in a lot of these forests, like I know we all know they're overstocked, too many fuels. That's where we're too late in responding. But just because we're late in doing that work doesn't mean that we don't have the responsibility to do that work. So that's how I answered that critique, if that's helpful.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
that's,
will share
yeah.
the current resources that we have, and then just know that there's more to come, but that we absolutely would appreciate feedback from you all on what that looks like moving forward for outreach materials and needs.
I appreciate that. And I think a lot of them are thinking of the lodgepole. And so I think they're thinking, well, wow, what's been around. So I don't think they understand this is like I wouldn't say, when I say new, this is a new species, new side, new thing. So I think they're all thinking, oh, well, the trees are already dead over here. What now you're responding? So I think it's going to be really a big lift for some education. And so I think I would love to have just some talking points on that. But let's see what Mr. Morgan has to say. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Morgan.
Heard a lot of great comments. One was Allison's. It's a marathon. I get kind of a chuckle out of the 3 years because 3 years isn't going to cut it. It's a marathon. That one, to Christina's comment, what do we want to look at? I would focus on any resources that you have that show the correlation between basal area on stands and your pine beetle outbreaks. And I think that there's a very direct correlation there. And I think I'm hearing about global warming and I'm hearing about droughts. That is, in my mind, true, but it's a third or fourth place in the cause of this. And drought and global drought especially can reduce a tree's ability. You're going to have some success with sap out. Sap out takes sap flow. Sap flow takes reasonable moisture. So a drought would contribute to a tree's inability to be a sap out and withstand bugs. But the real question is the overall vigor of the trees on the ground. They can be dense, they can be overstocked, but it is the vigor. And if the tree is, and isn't big trees or little trees, it's vigorous trees and not vigorous trees that are growing well. And so that also provides your sap. I think that I was looking here, I was trying to take some notes, but it's interesting to me from my viewpoint. We had huge bug outbreaks in the 70s, and they were in Ponderosa. We've been on this game before, and it was Ponderosa outbreaks. And the interesting part about that was in the late 60s and early 70s, the big discussion was, what is it going to move over into the lodgepole? Then in your professional careers, we had the big outbreaks in the lodgepole and what happened there. At that time, the entomologists, the question they were asking was, is it going to move to the lodgepole? Because the name of the bug that's attacking here is Dendroctonus ponderosi, because that's where historically it's always been. And lodgepole was a fire species that used to burn up often enough that it wasn't a real big issue up there. So I think Christina also mentioned something that's very appropriate. I was trying to dig up some of the literature in the last day or two here, but there's been some great work already done on pine beetle in Ponderosa. And that material is already out there. It's been done. It's pretty accurate. And I was trying to look up some of the bulletins that were done by the Region 2 office, for their entomologist at the time was John Schmidt. He still lives up here in Fort Collins. He's in pretty poor health anymore, but a great guy. And he did a lot of bulletins, and they're available through the Federal Publishing Office for the Forest Service. And they're timely today, and they're great research. I think this time around, the research has been done. A lot of what's going to happen is it's how you respond to that. And so I would love to see, as a specific suggestion to you, Christina, if you've got any inventory plots available, and in the past I used to do forest-wide inventory plots and I got away from a lot of that. But if you had inventory plots available and overlay that with your projected bug outbreak map, and I think you would see an incredible correlation there. I would suggest that as a place to look. Thank you. And oh, I'm sorry, one other thing. The response to this, these bugs are going to go a lot further and a lot faster than I think a lot of people expect when this kind of stuff happens. It moves fast. And your educational standpoint on this, people like big trees. They like big ponderosa. They like old growth ponderosa. And then there's two different things there, though. Big trees and a healthy stand, you can have big trees. As your ponderosa pine gets older, they tend to slough that outside coarse bark. They get thin barked and they're really susceptible. And that is the primary point of attack for mountain pine beetle. So to make the public happy, we got to raise big, strong, vigorous trees, not necessarily real old ones. So that would be a place I would look at as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison.
Just thank you so much for that, Mark. I just wanted to share briefly, very briefly, I've been having, I think this council has, I love this, this question, Commissioner, about what information is there to share. How can we be as we voice our concerns or what we are doing as a council or what we are pushing for as a council for this, that we all understand the science and understand everything that, and so I'm so grateful. I think we have the best team here to be able to do that. But I had a great conversation with the U.S. Forest Service this week. And it was about the hope that we are not just chasing dead trees, that it is our responsibility to look forest wide. And so yes, the public will probably focus most on when it turns red, but it's our responsibility to ensure that we're actually looking away from the outbreaks themselves and getting into our forests, which is where, Mark, why I just wanted to mention one more thing, Good Neighbor Authority is going to come into play so much more, because when we look outside of these outbreaks, we're heading deeper and deeper into our federal partners and our federal public lands. So as much as we can do to work to support sound forest management on our federal lands, as well as we have always talked about GNA in this council, it's going to be even more important to get out there. Thank you.
Great point, and something I brought up when we had our legislative breakfast with the federal delegation staff and a bunch of state senators and representatives yesterday. I brought up the GNA recommendation from the Forest Health Council and how important that was. And also I invited them all early to the breakfast and told them what's coming. They already wrote it, a lot of them wrote it down. And then just also brought up the pine beetle and how there was stuff coming and we really needed to understand. So Julie, you're next, and then I have a couple ideas about the outreach ideas. So Julie, I know you probably have some unique perspectives as well.
So many thoughts. I'm going to keep it super brief this morning. Christine, in response to your question about what types of information, materials, etc., would be helpful, one of the things that comes to mind is, knowing this information that's coming out and knowing the concern and where folks think this situation is headed. I think it would be really helpful if there are things that landowners can do now who have these these particular species on their property. If we can be telling them and sharing information about what can you do today that might be helpful to, proactively get ahead of impacts to your property. that kind of information is always welcome as opposed to a reactive. So I would just, that's the very first thing that comes to mind. Are there things people can do today?
And Julie, that builds on what I was going to say. So thank you again for the segue. I'm glad we're all kind of on the same wavelength today. But I do think people, you know, just me talking about it and trying to explain how this little grain of bug, the size of a grain of rice, is how can it take down a large tree and how does it do that? Those are some of the questions I got. And then the other question was, what can we do? And are we, is it, you know, what does this mean? And so I had even those questions from fire chiefs and some fire districts, because we've been getting together with some of the watersheds and having a little holiday after the meeting gatherings and trying to share, hey, have you heard about this? You should be paying attention. So I'm wondering if you have kind of a tier 1, tier 2, or even tier 3 piece of information. Like tier 1, this is for landowners or the general public, because I think we also need to educate people in the cities. Why does this matter to you? Because if we're going to need everyone on board to support legislation and funding, we need to make sure people in Denver and the larger urban corridors understand how this could potentially, as you saw the map, it could potentially head in and how this impacts them. I think that's important. And also trying to, you know, how does it kill the tree is some questions. And I couldn't quite articulate that as well as I wanted to. And then I think the next is, the fire chiefs or ambassadors. So I'm thinking if we can educate, like we're having some meetings with county commissioners in January with the 2 different groups and try to educate them, because they're going to get questions. So how do we arm fire district chiefs or county commissioners or city councils? Because when they have questions, maybe if they understand the urgency and that it's a marathon, not a sprint, but there's things you can do. And then we have a whole nother layer of not subject matter experts, but ambassadors who at least can send them to the website or send them to the appropriate people to help kind of, you know, a layered response of getting out, because people trust their fire district, you know, captains in their neighborhood, especially in the mountains. And so I think that, and then I'll make a third, you know, layer of it's all of you, right? And how do we support you getting out into the right groups to listen? And then also I think, you know, there's tourism groups like Visit Estes Park, visit Fort Collins, visit, you know, the mountain, what is that? The mountain ski towns group, educating those groups, going to educate them. And I don't know who does that, or, you know, there's a packet of information that, hey, you know, here's this and we can come talk if you wish. I just think that that would be, in my mind, helping other people understand and help educate kind of a layer so they can direct people. Yeah, that's a great idea. So I have to direct people to the right location for information. Kind of like when we have an emergency response, everyone calls us and like, okay, we're evacuating, what do we do? And as we've been trained as electeds, you send them to the JIC, the Joint Information Center. You do not try to take care of all this. You funnel them into the right information area. And I just wonder if that would be something also we think about. So just how we can help direct them to the right source to get the information and help. So just some ideas there, you know, because it's a process, right? No matter with our emergency management, whether it's a zombie apocalypse or a flood or a fire or whatever, it's the same process that we with our operations. So if we can just get everyone into the right information center, that might be helpful. Mr. Morgan, and then I know we're running out of time with our agenda, but I think I have an idea of how we can zoom through that. Mr. Morgan.
Real quick, technically, and I'll try to keep this very short, your mountain pine beetle bores into the tree, and if it's not sapped out, it carries the blue stain virus on the cilia, on the leg hairs of the bug. All right, that gets introduced to the tree, and the virus then essentially goes along eating the nutrients in the sapwood of the tree. It eats the nutrients from the lumen, the center of the cell, and essentially discharges, or the manure from that is a starchy subject that fills the lumen of the cells in the sapwood, and essentially that plugs up the tree's ability to transfer water, and that kills the tree. So once that sapwood is successfully penetrated, it's like a virus. It's going to spread around the whole tree and eventually kill it. So more hits, the faster it kills it. but then the next year the bug bores out again and does it again. And the two critical things are the rate of spread, how many trees versus the next infected trees. It is a 1 to 3, 1 to 5, 1 to 7 rate of spread. Excuse me. The reason I bring this up on the technical side of the thing is that one of the things that we're going to look at and the public's going to want to know is you got to stop this rate of spread, so you cut the trees. Then how do you render that bug dead? You can do it chemically. You can remove the bark, then you took away the home of the bug. You're still going to have a dead tree, but you can either remove the bark, you can disturb the bark, you can chip. There's all these different methods. But one of the things that has been slow in the past, educationally wise for your public, cutting the tree and then hauling it all over the country, it's a mobile home for bugs. It's how you're going to respond to it on the spot. So I think educationally wise, the public's pretty smart. In the past bug wars, we used to put, people always ask questions. They want to know what's going on. And there was some great posters that were already done on the life cycle on bugs. And I believe they came from the State Forest Service. We used to post them all the time. And you guys need good historians. Dig around there and you've already got what you're looking for. And they were really great. We used to have pamphlets on the counter, and we used to have the posters up on the door. People would go to leave and they'd look at the poster, and you could, I think, go digging around over there in the basement somewhere and you got what you need, and it's really good, and you could get it out fast, would be my suggestion.
Thanks, Mr. Morgan. All right, so let's put this off to January 9th, I think is the next meeting, but let's go look at the list of, I don't know, Courtney, do you have that list you could pull up that we have of from our last meeting? All great discussion, everybody. I hope Allison, Christina found some nuggets there of worth. So
Would you all
So I
prefer me
wanted to-
screen share? I just put it in the chat, but I can also screen share if that's more helpful.
now let's whatever you want to do. So I wanted to go through the list and add another column, 2 columns if we could. One for like a $, whether we think this might take money. And then another one would be putting, like we talked about, someone had put, you have the stars, the little pluses. I don't know if we want to put them there again, or how we kind of move these up on the list of who had the most pluses and kind of not prioritize them yet, but just say which one had the most so far, so we could put the top ones at the top. And I don't know if that's something we could do and have ready for just January 9th, but I was wanting to get everybody a chance to kind of put some stars or pluses by the list on what we have so far. Not saying this is a final list, but just kind of for reference, just kind of helping us sort this list a little bit. And so has everyone got that pulled up and can look at it? Oh, there it is. Thanks, Courtney. So is extending incentives for the blue stain wood. I think the reason that I like that still there, because that might be a low hanging fruit for incentives, just to something that may not, I don't know how much that costs, what that looks like, but that had been something that I think had been brought up in the pine beetle working group. Mr. Morgan, go ahead.
Yeah, on that, in the past, we had this no tax on beetle kill wood, no state tax. And I understand what everybody's trying to do, but either you force sawmills to be liars and lumber brokers to be liars, because you're cutting wood all the time, and some of it's bug killed wood and some of it's not bug killed wood. And as you process out there, the one thing that you get as a product, you may have some blue stain 1x6 paneling, and it's obvious it was blue stained and it was bug killed wood. But some mills got in trouble because they said, well, pretty much everything that's coming in is bug killed wood, so we're going to take a no tax, no state sales tax on all of it. That's disingenuous and not true. And the cost of sorting it out for a lot of mills like us, we just never bothered because the cost of sorting the products by tax more than offset what we could offer as a discount to our customers for the tax. So whatever, that question will come up, and whatever you want to do with that, just be careful, because the state tax people have a different view of it than the forestry people. So I don't have the answer. I'll provide you with the problem.
Okay, so maybe that's a good question for some sales tax people at the state. Is, you know, was this a detriment or help, or maybe get some more information on whether this was helpful or not. So I don't know, can we put another information about need more information?
I make things so hard for you, I know.
No, it's good. So we need to look at, because we need to, that's a good information to have, not waste time on something that maybe wasn't beneficial. I just had heard it in a couple of meetings from some of those folks like, oh, you know, we could do this. So let's move on to biomass. And we don't know how much that is. All right, biomass. I would say this probably takes some money. I don't know how much or how much a pilot, but, and I'm wondering, also the policy or legislation. And I was wondering also if we need to add a column of, because we can make recommendations, right? Allison, Courtney, we can make recommendations.
Yeah,
Maybe-
I think that was my intention with this column, is what would the recommendation won't be take care of biomass. The recommendation will be related to a policy or legislation. So I can definitely just add that word, recommendation.
Because I think we may not, you know, it might take money, but we might need to have, if we think it's going to take money, but we can just strongly encourage, recommend that we need to solve this, and it's going to take money. So I think I'd like to put legislation and recommendation on that for both of them. And then we can kind of fine tune that in January, unless someone has any concerns with that. Mr. Morgan.
Yes. Real quickly, this is a great group, and I think it's a great group of intelligent people. I worked on the cost of this removing biomass at a modest level in this state. I've turned these numbers over to the State Forest Service in the past and to the feds. And if somebody wanted, I could go over the numbers, but I think a realistic, modest program to remove biomass at the level that would make some difference at all would be about $200 million a year. And I realize that's not going to be a real popular concept around right now. So sometimes one just keeps quiet and does what one can. But I think I could give you a pretty good scientific case that would be a schedule for treating about 2% of your operable ground on stuff that needs to be harvested right now. Will be a 50-year rotation, which is pretty modest. But I think the number would be somewhere around 200 million a year. So if you're going to put that in your Christmas wish stocking, I think that's a realistic number. But I think it's also, we need to look at what we can do with what we've got here and now and the realities of the situation. But
I agree. And that's the number I have for the state, and I have the number for Larimer County for just, to mitigate what we know that's not on forested land, is private and not forest land, is $450 million that we need to tackle the next, that's bone dry tons, but that's just for the next, 20 years, 30 years. So
I work cheaper.
Huh?
I work cheaper. Mine is 200 million a year though.
I know, but that's just for Larimer County. If we got it all done today, it'd be 450 million, everything done today. So I just wondering if I think this is legislation and policy and a recommendation again, because I think this also could be an education piece to say, hey, this is what we're up against. I think if we don't talk about it and share the costs and the ramifications, it's just the one leg of the stool or the piece of the puzzle we have not been able to address. And now the pine beetle adds a whole nother level of complexity, because like as you can't put them on, they're hot, what I heard they're called hot logs. You can't move them to sort yards, won't take them. So you burn them in place. What's the what does that look like? So that's a whole nother extra layer, I think, of complexity from what I've heard. So Pat, and then I'm looking at who's the other one, Courtney.
Yeah, just a quick question. I apologize because I missed a portion of the conversation, but above this one, you have extending the incentive for blue stained wood. Could we expand that to include just diseased trees in general, or trees that are part of a disease control or a pest control program? And I don't know, maybe Christina Burry knows the answer to that question. They could already be included.
So I think we did, I know a little bit. I think there was a question with some of the legislative actions that could be taken associated with mountain pine beetle and the new task force and the Gov's executive order. This seemed like an easy one to pick up and focus on the incentives for blue stained wood, just given the time frame. But I think the key is when you start to expand it, it gets nuanced and like, what diseased would you include, like root rot and all the, I mean, Mark, you know more than I do about this stuff. But I think that it just would slow things down, which is fine. That's fine. If that's something that this group wanted to discuss and kind of come up with those nuances. But to Mark's point, I think it would be a small win on the scale of what we're trying to achieve. Like as a committee, I think incentive programs are good, but they're not the best bang for the buck. So we could focus on it and expanding it. But I think the real question is it worth the time and effort in terms of the benefit?
Thanks, Christina. Courtney.
I was just wanting to comment on this column in general. I thought this could be the place where and maybe this is what you're thinking would happen in January, where we name what policy actually addresses biomass. So as opposed to like a yes or no column, I was thinking this could be where we say like, what is the policy that we would want to recommend? So
okay,
I don't know if you all want to do that today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's a good point. So we're almost out of time. And Mr. Morgan, I'll get to your question here in just a second. And I know we only put an hour a day. I was trying to just honor everyone's time for the holidays. And I know my kids came in late last night and missed the wind, and it was great that they landed safely. I just want to try to I have 3 days with them. And so I'm trying to do as much as I can. So I'm wondering if you all could do over the holidays, you got till January 9th, print out that list. Don't add to the one that's on the column. The column with your list, print it out, kind of put, plus or a check by the ones that you want to, prioritize. Let's see how that looks. Think about a policy and even as low hanging fruit, big picture. I think we should throw all the ideas out there and then just see, how we can kind of narrow them down. And I think, after the talk about the pine beetle, and we talk about the trees, I still think kind of coming back after when you talk about not chasing dead trees, but getting deeper in the forest. I think we also need to have maybe a short-term legislative and a long-term. So maybe how do we do the reforestation, especially with the nursery coming online? How do we come back in some of those forests and plant trees now? And like Mr. Morgan said the last meeting, how they're but did you say a few years ahead of Mr. Morgan, and we get those nursery trees and we get a few years ahead? Yeah, so I want to kind of plant that seed with you all. So I'm thinking if we had some reactive and then also some proactive. So we're not, like you said, we're not chasing dead trees. It's like we have this whole spectrum of having to deal with what the crisis and the mitigation and the fuels, but also we're forest health. And how do we come back? And what's the policy? What's the legislation to give some hope that we're coming right back and we're going to help these folks get some trees planted? Because I do that every year, and you see how you come back in the ones you did the year before, you can see them starting to grow or they survived, and I don't know what that looks like. So and then we have this nursery coming online, so it's just maybe the timing is there. So I'm sorry to cut us short. Mr. Morgan, what did you want to add real quick?
Real quick, I think what we got to remember here is we don't have a mountain pine beetle epidemic. We have a tree epidemic. We have too dang many trees. And so my thoughts on that are, as far as the tax cut on mountain pine beetle wood, Christina is right on the spot. To me, as a business owner, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And that little bit of help you get on the tax is probably not worth what it costs the state to sort it out and us as a business to sort it out. That's personally from Morgan Timber Products. I don't know what my industry would say, but that would be my response.
Well, I think that's an important response because it's important to hear from the business owner. And also someone might hear that they can extend this and then we can say, yeah, it would be helpful, but it's not, the juice is not worth the squeeze. And we need to really focus our limited resources on more impactful, what is it, kind of high priority, and then most impactful, and you find that you have the most impactful and the high priority, and that's the ones you kind of focus on. So I think that's a great point, Mr. Morgan. Everyone feel like they got some good information and some thoughts today? Everyone okay with the homework? Yeah. Okay. And do you like the idea of that we go and make mark pluses and you think about really what's the policy or recommendation? How much, I don't think we should limit ourselves to thinking money wise right now. I know it's a limiting factor, but if that limits our thinking and out of the box thinking, then I think we're limiting ourselves. It might spark an idea somehow. And I don't want it. So I want us to think, go ahead and think that, and then we can start limiting after that about, oh, this is going to be way too expensive, but we have to at least talk about it, I think. And because if it's going to be the answer, then we have to figure out how we partner. And we talk about leveraging like the school district and the fire commission with the workforce, how we can bend and blade funding too. So that's another thing I want you to think about. How do we find partners to help add and blend and braid to that funding when the Good Neighbor Authority? So just some thoughts there. So, I mean, I think we should think we're not just the limiting of the Colorado legislature, but how do we bring partners and maybe blend and braid that, whether it's private sector or everyone is going to be impacted by this. And how do we bring everyone to the table to kind of say, hey, can you step up and help us with this? So just some thoughts there to add to your as you're looking through that list. So happy holidays, everyone. Happy New Year. See you next year. I hope you found this helpful. And Allison, thanks for being here and adding to the conversation. And I will put that on the agenda, some updates for the outbreak. And I think that's going to be ongoing. So we just kind of keep a pulse on this. Both hour and a half on January 9th, just so we need some time for the breakfast, if that's all right. And nobody opposed to that? Great. I'll take a motion to adjourn, please.
So move.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to that motion? All right, we're adjourned. Happy holidays. I hope you all have a great break. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you all.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy New Year.